Hello, everyone. A warm welcome to you. This is Politics Today live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Kimaloye in Abuja. Well, so much to talk about. It does look like we are in the season, and so many things are happening today. As soon as we woke up to a series of stories that will get your attention today, politically speaking. So let's get to it, everyone. A day after it took over the affairs of the ruling All Progressives Congress APC, Governor Abubakar Sani Bello of Niger State has been reacting and speaking to the issues of zoning of positions in the party ahead of the National Convention and the state of affairs of the party. Take a listen to him.
It's a continuation of yesterday's meeting, and just so that you don't ask me tomorrow, we're going to be meeting every day until the convention so that we put things together. And basically today we looked at the convention subcommittee, and we collected some reports from some of the committees, hoping that tomorrow we'll decide on next steps to take.
One of the major
Nothing much happened today.
One of the major things that will affect this convention, sir, is the zoning. And yesterday the committee submitted this report. Have you been able to discuss on this?
The report has been adopted, so it will be released to you any moment now. The zoning formula. Yeah, it will be released. Just wait, they will release it to you.
And how soon do we expect the next meeting? Because one of the reasons...
Hopefully next week. Yeah. In fact, next week.
Meanwhile, there's been some stories going around as relating to the status of Senator Akpan Udwade, who is the secretary of the APC Caretaker Committee. There has been stories that he has since resigned his position because there talks about him packing his things out of the APC secretariat. But Senator Udwade has been reacting to that story, and take a listen to what he said.
Read on social media the story of my resigning as the National Secretary of the APC. I want to state that it's not true that I have not resigned. And if I resign, you will see the letter of resignation by me. So someone cannot just say, Mr. So you did, what is alive? I'm not bigger than the party, not bigger than the president of the party. The Provincial Council, the leader of the party. I'm waiting for my national chairman to come back. We have done so much for this party. When we inherited this party, you can recall, it was in its lowest head. We built the party and we recovered a lot of grounds. We've been able to register 41 million people. And we also have bought the secretariat. This secretariat was negotiated by the then chairman of Chief John Oyobo. We came and paid money and bought the secretariat. We've been able to recover what we lost. We lost and we brought in a lot of governors. All the state we lost, we brought it in 2 years. We've been able to go around this country and amend the constitution of the party, which was difficult to do in less than 1 year. We've done the constitution, and we've done world congresses, chapter congresses, and states, and we're back to do the national convention.
All right, so you heard him. It looks like the APC Secretariat now is the stage for some of the major political drama that we might be seeing, at least for now, till the party holds its national convention. As you've heard that every day the party might be meeting at the state headquarters in Abuja. Well, to one of the biggest stories today, A federal high court in Abuja has ordered the Ebonyi State Governor, Dave Umahi, and his deputy, Eric Igwe, to vacate their seats as a sitting governor and deputy, respectively, on grounds that the People's Democratic Party, PDP, won the election on March 2019 and not its candidate, having defected to the All Progressives Congress, APC. Governor Umahi and his deputy, according to the party, cannot transfer the mandate of the PDP to the APC. That is a ruling of the court. The court was citing Section 221 of the Constitution. Justice Inyang Ekwo ordered the PDP to immediately send names of replacements to INEC so that fresh elections can be conducted. Justice Ekwo also ordered the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to cease from recognizing Governor Umahi and Mr. Igwe as the governor and deputy governor of Ebonyi State. Take a listen to some of the lawyers. I was going to let you listen to what some of the lawyers said immediately after the court ruling today at the Federal High Court. It's a major decision of court. Of course, we know that there are a lot of legal actions that will follow. Let me allow you to listen to Governor Umahi, who has since been reacting to this. According to him, he says that he remains the governor of the state. Take a listen to Governor Umahi.
Let me also tell you that this particular case was instituted by the PDP here in Ebonyi State, in Abuja, and then we applied to the CJ of the Federal High Court, and he graciously transferred the case to Ebonyi State. Without a notification to us or our knowledge, they say that they had withdrawn the case, from Ebonyi. Who transferred the case back to the CJ of the Federal High Court? And why is it that the CJ of the Federal High Court has failed to transfer the case that they referred, back to Ebonyi State? The CJN was notified of substituting judgments in Zamfara and Ebonyi State, and it did nothing. Let me see how NJC is going to handle this, because even when judges give judgment over matters they didn't have knowledge, they were summoned to Abuja. Let's see how an affidavit was sworn to let this Justice Ekwo know that there are judgments that are substituted in this matter. He still went ahead and gave judgment. Let's see how this evil is going to stand. So I want all my supporters to laugh over it and know that it is judiciary on trial.
Well, you've heard Governor Umahi, but the PDP has, however, moved swiftly to the order of court and has nominated Honorable Igariwe as the governorship candidate based on what the court has ordered today. Well, it's now time for us to take a look at your political roundup stories. We'll get some legal insight into the judgment of the Federal High Court today regarding Governor Umahi, what has happened afterwards, and what could happen in the coming days. And of course, you'll get an insight of the order of court on the Electoral Act and what the Senate President said. Stay with me, everyone. Such an interesting program it promises to be. Take a look at your political roundup stories.
Even after the Speaker of the House of Representatives has read the court judgment stopping the National Assembly from amending the recently assented Electoral Act. But the Senate has disregarded the judgment of the Federal High Court. According to the Senate President, Ahmed Lawan, the Constitution stipulates separation of powers, and the judiciary cannot stop another arm of government from performing its roles in a democracy. The House of Representatives has made a U-turn on its decision on gender bills and has promised to recommend it for consideration during the second batch of the Constitution Amendment proceeding. The lawmakers will now reconsider its positions on such bills as indigentship, citizenship, and 35% affirmative action for women. Before now, women groups have protested the rejection of the gender-sensitive bills by the lawmakers. Women in their numbers today thronged the gate of the National Assembly, where they asked lawmakers to rescind their decision on the rejection of all gender bills during the Constitution Amendment process. The woman advised the lawmakers to reconsider the passage of the bills or risk being voted out during the 2023 general elections. The protest was part of the commemoration of the 2022 International Women's Day. Some men joined the protest saying they support the women's call for 35% representation in party leadership and more appointive positions in government and other bills. Members of the European Union in Nigeria and the National Human Rights Commission also joined in.
They must revisit that decision. They must reverse that decision. If not be so, 2023, we go show them pepper.
Going forward, it's going to be tit for tat. That's according to the wife of Edo State Governor, Mrs. Betsy Obaseki, who was called on women not to vote for any sitting senator in Nigeria. This, according to her, is to show their displeasure over the lawmakers' rejection of the 5 bills seeking to empower women in the Constitution Amendment. She was speaking during the occasion of the 2022 International Women's Day celebration in the state. She was represented by the wife of the Deputy Governor. Ahead of the 2023 elections, the national movement said it has adopted the new Nigerian People's Party as a political platform to contest. The leadership of the group launched in February this year as a third force convened by the former governor of Kano State, Rabiu Kwankwaso, was speaking during a press conference in Abuja. NNPP now has Dr. Boniface Anebonam as the chairman board of trustees, Air Vice Marshal John Efemije, retired, as the national chairman, and Senator Suleiman Hunkuyi as the deputy chairman. Other executive members include Oladipo Alayoku as the national secretary, Major Gilbert Agbo as the National Publicity Secretary, and Professor Rufai Ahmed Alkali as the National Organizing Secretary. Discussants during a policy dialogue by the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies have asked young people to find their place in active partisan politics. This, according to the conferees, is how to get the best out of the 2018 Not Too Young to Run Act ahead of the next general elections. While they agreed that the Act helps in removing the age barrier, they added that it did not, however, remove barriers associated with the cost of nomination forms, as well as the politics around the selection of candidates.
Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. Those are your political roundup stories. Now, we told you earlier that the Federal High Court, Justice Ekwo, ruled today, sacking Governor Dave Umahi, his deputy, and some other lawmakers in the state. But there's been reaction to that judgment of the court. And Governor says, look, he remains the governor of the state. In fact, the PDP has reacted to the judgment and swiftly moved to give a replacement. Honorable Ugariwe, a member of the House, has been nominated by the People's Democratic Party as a governorship candidate. Let's get some legal insight. I'm being joined on the program tonight by Honorable West Idaus, a senior advocate of Nigeria. Thank you so much. A sparkling new senior advocate. Thank you so much for coming tonight.
Thank you very much.
It's good to see you.
It's good.
Give us a sense of what has happened today, legally speaking. The governor insists he's the governor. He remains the governor, but the court has given his judgment. What happens usually?
Well, the thing is, when a judgment is given, the problem with the judgment is no matter how unreasonable it might be and how illogical it might be, it stands a valid document with force, unless, of course, you offset it through the appropriate appellate processes.
Okay.
Now, in this case, I'm not too sure what provision of the Constitution that judgment relied on. It talked about Section 221. 221 simply talks about the organization of political parties, what the party requires to have to qualify to operate as a political party and canvass votes. It hasn't got anything to do with the question of whether or not a person elected to the office of the governor who defects is automatically in a position to lose his seat if the court so pronounces. Remember that there are judicial decisions on this matter. Don't forget that at the point in time when Atiku, as vice president, left the PDP to join the ACN, a series of litigations were set in motion to ask for the same relief, which is being sought now against the governor of Ebonyi. And I know that at the end of the day, the position of the Supreme Court was clear that there was no constitutional provision which prescribed that a governor who had decamped be removed from office, as in the case of National Assembly members and legislators generally.
And you know, there was I know when you were in the National Assembly, there was these, defections was very rampant. It happens almost every other time.
Until Abegunde's case.
Abegunde's case, very popular one, yeah.
When Abegunde, who wanted to leave his party, approached the court, saying, oh, I have left this party and so on, and tried to hide under the guise that there was a division. And then the Supreme Court took the liberty to say, listen, we don't acknowledge family quarrels in one small state. A division must be a national divide, to the point that the nation knows that there has been a division in the political party.
And I think that was the time when it was then now put right what division could be,
of course,
and where it can only be at a national level.
Definitely.
But I want you to listen, senior advocates, to the lawyers at the court today after the judgment of Justice Inyang Eko.
It's very, very unfortunate that this type of judgment can come up. The Supreme Court has ruled and said there is no provision against the defection of the president, vice president, governor, or deputy governor. So, is the court making a judgment different from that of the Supreme Court? It is obvious. All the issues we raised were carpeted.
This is a clear case of travesty of justice. Jurisdiction. The State High Court had made a pronouncement on this matter, saying that the Constitution has no provision for defection, or has not made it an offense for a governor to defect from a party to the other. And I'm surprised that the Federal High Court here did not cite any provision of the Constitution.
Senior Advocate, you heard what the lawyers are saying.
Very well.
On the grounds on which this has happened.
And I think we are on the same page.
Okay.
And I had just talked about the fact that there is no constitutional support. There is also no judicial support. This is an isolated decision. In law, we can say that it will require the attention of a challenge. Okay? One would not like to make comments on a judgment that has been delivered as a senior lawyer. But at the same time, one would like to be guided and say, look, the position of judicial decisions, and we are bound by the hierarchy of courts in this country, it seemed to be, and clearly so, that, look, the question of defection becomes fatal only for the legislators in this country. But when you hold executive office and there is no provision in the Constitution, you cannot extend it by any interpretation, because if you try to do that, you'll be making laws which do not exist.
But give us a sense of what it's been. There seems to be a conflict of jurisdiction of the court. The State High Court seems to have the same hierarchy with the Federal High Court.
Correct.
And has made a pronouncement on this matter.
Correct.
What happens in that sense? Is there a conflict there?
Well, ideally, there are courts of concurrent jurisdiction, and none of them can really bind each other. Now, here is the State High Court is made a decision of its own. I'm not too sure whether the attention of that judgment was drawn to
the judgment of the State High Court.
No. I think the High Court.
The Federal High Court ruled today.
I think the High Court made its own judgment, gave its own judgment first earlier.
Yes.
I don't know, but I want to believe that that judgment may have been drawn to the attention of the Federal High Court. Now, it is possible that the issues may have been different, because it's not all the time that the issues are the same. It's also possible that there has been slight modification in the parties, which gives a separate coloration and does not make it exactly the same set of case that will then be bound by what we call res judicata, that the matter has been decided. I haven't seen those paperwork. But be that as it may, every court must respect the pronouncement of the Supreme Court. Unless the Supreme Court itself, in its wisdom for any reason, reverses itself. I'm not aware about such reversals so far. And so I want to assume that the interpretation given by the Federal High Court Abuja, if it is founded on Section 221, seem to be completely out of it.
So, on what basis can Governor Umahi remain governor?
Well, the thing is, first, if he files an appeal and quickly brings an application for stay, he will then have the latitude to remain in office while challenging that. Because if it was, as we do in the electoral petition, the electoral law is clear. When you lodge an appeal, it's an automatic stay, in a way, for an office holder who has been elected.
Is that the procedure at the Court of Appeal?
No, that's the procedure in the tribunals.
Okay.
So once you appeal, you
but can that procedure apply to a judgment from the Federal High Court?
No, now this is not an election petition. This is a constitutional matter as to whether or not a governor has defected. And if he defected, the consequence for that defection. So there's no alternative than to get an immediate appeal lodged and to get in the interim an order to keep the man in office while the question of whether or not the judgment was rightly decided
but what happens? Is it the case where you now decide which to pick? Because if the governor has a substantive judgment of the state high court and now there is a direct opposite judgment from the federal high court, can he, if he doesn't appeal it, what happens?
Well, what I know that INEC had always done, and I don't think they have departed, where there are conflicting judgments, the question of which judgment to obey would then be a decision to be made by the appellate court. The position of INEC will always be, we got one judgment saying you can hold this office. There's no law which prevents you from defecting. Then you have another coordinate judgment which says, you have defected and you are not entitled to be there. INEC issue a certificate of return. Now, the ball is back to the court of INEC
to decide.
Yeah, and I know that in those days, INEC used to go by what they call obey the last judgment. But in the last 1.5 years, they've changed their attitude. And the new attitude seems to be that, when we have this type of conflict, we wait for the appellate court.
All right, stay with me, Senior Advocate, because there is a lot of matter that we need to trash out, and we're going to plead for your knowledge and your expertise to be able to help trash out. That's the case of the Electoral Act and the expertise order. The Senate President has spoken. He said, no. What we will do is that we will do our constitutional duties. We want you to give us an insight into that. But I need to run to Osogbo, where there seems to be some drama also playing out after the primaries that were conducted there regarding the governorship election in Osun State. The party has conducted a governorship primary where the deputy governor of Bayelsa State chaired on behalf of the governor. And I understand that we've since been joined by Senator Sekibo, who is the electoral officer for that election. He joins us live from Osogbo. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Please give us a sense of what happened today. What is the outcome? Who is emerged winner? And what, at this time, can you give us as an update on the process?
Thank you very much. My name is Chief Dr. Abiye Sekibo, the Chief Electoral Officer for today's primaries in Osogbo. We've concluded there was a very smooth and calm election today, State Congress. No untoward events. Accreditation was smooth. We had over 1,000, I can't remember the exact figure now, but over 1,800 delegates who were accredited. And at the end, we had Senator Ademola Adeleke Jackson emerge as the PDP governorship candidate for Osun State.
Okay, that seems very interesting because, and we must say congratulations to the man who emerged winner, Senator Ademola Adeleke. Give us a sense of how many people were in that race, because we were hearing reports of some people at the last minute dropping out of the race. How many people were on the ballot? How many people dropped out at the last minute, or finally, how many people's name were on the ballot?
Well, what the National Secretariat gave to our committee was 6 candidates or 6 aspirants on the ballot, and that is what we had. We don't have any official communication of withdrawal from the race, but I did understand that 1 or 2 candidates did indicate that they were stepping down, but that didn't get to the Electoral Committee, so it didn't play any role in our assignment here.
There was a court order from a court in Ife relating to the delegates and which of the structure of the party to recognize and which of the members of the party to recognize at the primaries. Which of that did you follow, or which one did the national? Because I understand that there was a court order that was supposed to be served on the party's head office, but the office was shut at the time when the court order was going to be placed. There was a protest which we reported here on Friday. Which of the delegate lists or which of the chairmanship structure of the party did you recognize for this primary?
Well, that is outside our purview. The National Working Committee gave us a list of delegates to use for these primaries, and we stuck to that list given to us by the National Working Committee of the party. Who those delegates were had long been decided by the party. Whether it had anything to do with any court matters, I wouldn't be in a position to say.
There was another primary where we had the former governor, former governor of Osun State, Mr. Oyinlola, Olagunsoye Oyinlola. We had a few chieftains of the party, like the former chairman, Mr. Adagunodo, and the rest of them. They were present there. I'm very sure that you are aware there was a parallel primary that held in another venue in Osogbo today.
Well, I am not aware that there was a parallel primary. We have a letter constituting our committee from the National Working Committee, duly signed by the national chairman of our party, the national organizing secretary of our party, asking us to come here and conduct these primaries. And all of us were complete. The deputy governor of Bayelsa State, myself, and 3 others were complete. We were all in one venue, and we carried our assignment as directed. I don't know if there was another parallel congress anywhere. That information I don't have.
But can you give us perhaps some details, if you have them, of course. If you don't, we'll totally understand. But if you have them, with what margin did Senator Adeleke win this race?
I don't have it off. I don't have it on the paper with me now, but he scored over 1,800 votes. The second person, next person to him, scored 4 votes, and the third person had 1 vote, and the rest of the candidates didn't have any votes.
Confirm to us, sir, if Bamidele Adeleke, nephew to Senator Adeleke, was at the arena today as one of the candidates, aspirants.
I didn't see him at the venue.
Thank you so much, Chief.
He was the person that scored 1 vote.
Okay, he scored 1 vote. All right. Thank you so much, Chief Abiye Sekibo, who is the Chief Electoral Officer for the Osun PDP governorship primary. Chief Sekibo was a former Minister of Transportation here in Nigeria. Thank you so much indeed, and it's good to see you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Shao. Thank you for having me.
Let's get the senior advocate, Mr. Honorable Wesley Dawson, back into the conversation. So what happened today and yesterday? They call it ex-party order. It was an ex-party order, which means that one party in a matter approaches the judge, isn't it, to seek a relief on a particular matter. He thinks that it can get injury pending the substantive hearing of the matter, isn't it, if I'm right?
You're correct.
Okay, so PDP went before the court to receive an ex-party to say, look, wait on touching the Electoral Act, 84, Section 84, subsection 12. But the Senate President said, no, that is infringing on our powers, constitutional powers, of acting and taking and acting on our duties and roles. What's your view on what has happened?
Well, the truth is that I listened to the Senate President, and my view is, I think we are pushing the concept of separation of powers to extremities. There is really no such separation of powers that do not bring about some level of interactions. Now, sir, under Section 4 of the Constitution, the legislature has the power to make laws for the good governance of the country. But Section 4, subsection 8 of that Constitution says that the exercise of that legislative power is subject to judicial scrutiny. Yes, and I want to read that quickly so you can see that, and that's important.
That's a judicial review of the powers of the National Assembly.
Yes, subsection 8, subsection 4, of Section 4, which is the main trunk of the power of the legislature. It says, save as otherwise provided by this Constitution, the exercise of legislative powers by the National Assembly or by a House of Assembly shall be subject to the jurisdiction of the courts. All right, so if you say making laws, the exercise of your power to make laws, it shall, it's not may, it says shall be subject to the jurisdiction of a court. We agree, therefore, that you cannot act in isolation. You cannot be an island. So the statement that, oh, we are bound by separation of power, I won't listen to court order, was a misnomer. In fact, it was deeply anti-democratic. Because you cannot reset or set him. What you do is to ensure that you stand down that bill. There's no urgency in it. You stand down the bill and you deal with the order. After all, the order is ex parte, and there are ways to set aside an ex parte order.
And the window of an ex parte is for 14 days.
It's for 14 days at the maximum. But if it was wrongly made, you can get it squashed even far before the 14 days. So rather than say we are bound by the concept of separation of powers, so we would not listen to, if everybody were to do that in this country, we'll be back to a state of anarchy.
The banana republic.
So that's why I say that the power to make laws is circumscribed by the same Constitution. So his hands are really tied. Now, the next question you should ask is, do they have the legitimate powers to make laws? Correct, they have it. Can injunctive orders be used to obstruct the enjoyment of a legal right? No, it cannot. So with the greatest respect to the court, there was nothing before the court that appeared to me to have been the wrong exercise of a legal right. The power to amend the law belongs to the parliament. It's the National Assembly that made that law, the National Assembly that can amend the law. You don't want the law amended, so you rush to court to say, don't do your job. The power of injunction is to protect the enjoyment of a legal right. And I have already told you that by Section 4, the National Assembly has that legal right to make laws. What have they done wrong on this occasion? Nothing. The president has requested a revisit
of that section.
Anybody can request a revisit. Shehu can request a revisit. I can write to request a revisit. It is left to the National Assembly
to take action. Honorable Edson, let me allow you to listen to what the lawyer to the PDP, what he said after obtaining that ex parte order yesterday. Take a listen to Mr. Onoja.
The court has granted order restraining all the respondents in this matter from proceeding to tamper with the Electoral Act 2022 as requested by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Why? Because we brought to the court that the Electoral Act 2022 is already signed, it becomes a law, and because it becomes a law, it cannot be tampered with except through the due process of proper amendment, not by directive to delete a particular section 84(12) of the Electoral Act. Because deleting it means tampering with it, and it's already a law. So anybody who wants to challenge the Electoral Act, the proper venue is the court of law, not through a directive of the president. And so any move by the National Assembly to delete that section 84(12) is unconstitutional. Is a violation of the constitution of this country. It cannot be done at this stage. The National Assembly know what to do if they want to amend the law, not by deleting. Now that the president has signed the law, there's nothing that can be done to that law. It's already a law that must be implemented by all the agencies of this country, the Attorney General of the Federation, the INEC, all of them must comply. It's already an existing law that must be implemented. Cannot be deleted. No section of it can be deleted at this stage. So the matter is adjourned to 21st of March 2022 for hearing of our motion on notice.
All right, so we'll be hearing because my guest is also an experienced lawmaker. He's been in National Assembly, so he can give us a sense of the process of deleting and amending, whether there is, in technical terms, whether they're the same or not. We'll get to hear that. But let me allow you to listen to some portions of what the Senate President said about the issue of separation of powers and this ex parte order. Take a listen to Ahmed Lawan.
I find it very, very necessary to talk to this at this point because the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, our governance system, is based on the presidential system of government, where there's clear-cut separation of powers. And I mean separation and exercise of powers. The judiciary, under no circumstance, can stop the legislature, the National Assembly, from performing its legislative duties. We know what our due processes are. So, just like we wouldn't venture into what the judiciary does, the judiciary should understand that.
All right. Senate President Ahmed Lawan, give me a sense. So you've heard both sides. And I guess our viewers on, tonight can also make sense of it. So deleting it, wouldn't the deleting go through all the process and amending it? Are they the same technically or and in real time?
Well, I think I have responded to what the Senate President said by reading the section. Made it very clear that the Constitution, because they keep talking about the Constitution separates us, the Constitution is something, what section of the Constitution? Section 4 is the omnibus grant that gives power to Parliament. It is the biggest power they have. That section 4 circumscribes them, limits them to judicial scrutiny. So to say that the judiciary cannot look at your activity is not correct in terms of law. It may be sentimentally, in terms of political science, it's still not correct. But however, well, he's not a lawyer. He's doing his best. Now, we come to the process of amending laws. Oh, there will never be an amendment that is not initiated by due process. There will be one, either that the bill to amend is sponsored by members of Parliament themselves, or two, the bill is sponsored by stakeholders who have knowledge in the area and they have been able to explain the reason for the amendment. Or lastly, that the bill is requested by office holders like Mr. President, he gives the reason why the bill be amended. And then finally, individuals who think they know enough, who've done some work in a given area, can approach Parliament and explain why certain amendments be effected. And so a letter from Mr. President is in due process of commencing commencing debate.
So they cannot just delete; they have to go through.
No. The letter is read. Once the letter is read, then a bill comes up, and then first reading is taken. The Senate can even suspend its rules to take all 3 readings in one day. We've done that before. You suspend your rules, you take the first reading, you take the second reading, and you take the third reading, depending on how urgent it is.
All right.
The bill is.
Please stay with me because I need to attend to another very interesting matter tonight that we've been on since yesterday. The Deputy Governor of Edo State was on the program, and it was a conversation that came from what the Governor of Edo State, Godwin Obaseki, has said. The warning that he gave in relation to the crisis rocking the PDP. Tonight, I have joining me from Manchester in the UK, Jude Imagwe, a member of the PDP in Edo State and a former aide to former President Goodluck Jonathan. Thank you so much, Mr. Imagwe, for joining us. Give us a sense, of what is happening. The governor has sent a warning to those who think that they wanted to fight him. And it does look like the deputy governor is saying, look, they want to push them out of the PDP. Why is this issue of harmonization causing trouble in the PDP in Edo State?
Shehu, first, thank you for having me. I don't know if you can hear me. Thank you for having me. And,
you, please go ahead.
Yeah, and thank you for creating a platform for us to get certain records straight. Now, the truth remains that I don't think we have a problem of harmonization in Edo State. We only have a problem of honesty, sincerity, and transparency. Now, it's painful and it's a pitiable situation that we have found ourselves where we are today. And some of the statements that were credited to the governor some days ago, I do not think they are statements that should come from a leader, a father, and an executive governor. 3 things are key here. The first one is looking at the constitution of the party. There are clear definitions in chapter 2, part 1 of it, membership. Now, you don't come into a party to say you want to become an executive. You come into a party first to become a member. And I have not seen anywhere in the 18 local government of Edo State where the world chairman of the People's Democratic Party have denied anybody, I mean any and everybody, the privilege of registering into the party. Not the world chairman, not the LGA chairman, not the state chairman has done any of these things. So on that part, they are not right. They are not sincere to the people to say that the PDP is not granting them inclusiveness. The second aspect of it, the governor is always hammering on the leader of the party. Nobody is saying you are not a leader. We have several other leaders in the party. But as a governor of the state, yes, you have another privilege. Now, taking away the executive power of a governor away from him and bringing him into the party as a party member. He's a leader, but he's one of the leaders of the party. And for the purpose of clarity, the governor got this thing about inclusiveness and harmonization wrong from the inception. After election, what was needed for a governor that honestly want to carry out transparency, sincerity, and inclusiveness was a family meeting. This was not done. Secondly, the window period between when the governor began to constitute his cabinet to the time he even constituted a cabinet created a very strong room for doubt, mistrust, and deception. Then the third aspect of it, the governor has allowed himself to inherit a crisis that ab initio is not part of him. Now, if we want to go to discuss about inclusiveness, like the deputy governor, my senior comrade, mentioned yesterday, when the governor came to PDP, he came with his complete structure. When I'm talking about structure, I'm not talking about party structure. I'm talking about himself, his deputy governor, his chief of staff, the secretary to the state government, and the speaker. Now, it is important for us to equally get one thing clear. Before today, the governor should not be using that assertion that he made PDP to win election. No. 3 senatorial districts, PDP has always won 2. And even with the presence of the governor to our party, we still want only those. We still want only those two. That the governor himself, before coming to PDP, was being represented in National Assembly, in the House of Reps by a PDP representative, in the senatorial district by a PDP senator, which means we were not lacking in structure, we were not lacking in manpower, we were not lacking in popularity.
Apologies to cut in, Jude. Jude. Let me cut in quickly, and I'd like to ask within the limit of the time that we have, just 3 or 4 quick questions. I'd like you to help me tackle them straight on. First and foremost, were there agreements with the governor and his team when they were moving into the PDP on the structure and the sharing formula of the structure? Were there agreements?
That is that you said 3 questions, so I'm waiting for the 2 other questions so I can take them all at once. I'm
not going to ask the 3 questions together. I'm asking them one after the other, so I wanted you to answer them in quick. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. To the best of my knowledge, I was not part of any agreement. I do not know if there was an agreement between the governor, the then immediate past state chairman, who today is the vice chairman of South, the former national chairman of the People's Democratic Party. But I know there was crisis owing to the entrance of the governor to the party. There was crisis. And by the grace of God, I was one of those persons too that equally signed a document accepting the governor's presence and membership into the People's Democratic Party. I was the youngest that signed that document. I can mention the names of other leaders that signed that document. We signed that document in good faith. We signed that document believing that we're not going to have the crisis that we've never had.
Okay, so my next question, I think you have attended to that one. My next question will be, was there any expectation from those the governor met in the PDP and obligation that the governor is not meeting at the moment?
Shehu, my brother, to be very honest and with the fear of God, we were not expecting anything other than inclusiveness and acceptance from the governor. Every old member of the PDP have accepted and will continue to welcome the governor with open heart. But they have refused to accept us as brothers and partners. See, my brother Shehu, we have
you guys are the ones that he met on the ground that are not accepting them. The deputy governor says you are the ones that are not accepting them, that they brought the state chairman of the APC, they brought a whole lot of big wigs from the APC, but they have not been given slots, positions in the PDP. They have not been welcomed. They have not had a seat in the PDP. That's the allegation the deputy governor laid yesterday.
In talking about slot, not talking about position. We are talking about people that were constitutionally elected. On the 14th of March 2020, I am part of that executive. I'm the ex official of the state. We were democratically elected. So coming to say that you just want to dissolve a democratically elected ESCO without a political settlement or a negotiated exit cannot stand. That is one, because you cannot tell the governor to be dissolved and we want to get a deputy governor. We didn't discuss that with them. We have accepted them as one. The deputy governor himself should be honest with issues on ground. Are they open? Are they open to the people?
On a final note, Jude. On a final note, Jude. Let me ask you: is there any template? Is there any template that you have laid? I mean, your group now that have been on the ground, the old PDP in Edo. Is there any template that you have laid on the ground that is not being followed?
See, Shehu, let me explain something. Let me explain something, Shehu. It's a very easy thing. I don't think we would have gotten to this stage that we are now if people have been honest and sincere. See, the governor is the governor. The governor has the knife. The governor has the yam. The governor equally has the instrumentality of government to buy gas or choose to buy kerosene or petrol to cook. All that is needed. If before election, a governor can appoint over 167 people as senior special assistants, I don't think there is anything wrong. See, our local government council has been dissolved for over a year. We do not have local government structure ranging from the councillors, supervisory councillors to the executive. What is wrong with compensating people? See, you must see, when I say negotiated exit, it means, and it can be called political settlement. It means I want to take from you as world chairman, I want to take from you as local government chairman. I know you contested the election, you won. So I'm replaced, go and become a local government chairman, come and become a supervisor, come and become an SSE, come and become a PA to government.
I'm very sure that this is a matter that is going on and perhaps with the intervention of the national body might be resolved. But I must sincerely thank you, Jude, because we are totally out of time. Jude Magwe is chieftain of the PDP in Edo State and a former aide to former President Goodluck Jonathan. Thank you so much indeed for talking to us. He's been speaking with us from Manchester in the United Kingdom. I must sincerely thank you, Senior Advocate. It's good to see you. Since you were done that silky garment, this is the first time we're sick. Thank you so much for coming in tonight. Honorable West Idausa. But that's our show for tonight, everyone. Many thanks for watching. I'm Sean Kimale. Bye for now.